Hi, Stefan.
Good evening, Bianca.
Good evening.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Can you see my screen?
I can't see. Are you sharing something?
I am sharing your slide.
No. No.
Okay, let me try again.
Yeah, I can see it now. I just logged in.
Teams is not always reliable, is it?
I think, yeah, just log in. Yeah, it's showing. So that's fine.
Hello,
Hello.
I'm here.
Welcome.
Thank you. Is there a lot of echo?
No, not at all.
Okay, thank goodness.
Are the two of you on campus?
We're on campus, yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many people we're expecting. Just to let you guys know that so far the average for this has been about 20 to 30 people. So
Goodness.
we invite the students, we invite the alumni and all industry, we share on social media. So just whoever's in the room, we'll speak to whoever's in the room. And if there are no Q&As, we can just move forward.
Perfect. Thank you, Stefan.
Excellent.
Cool.
While I'm presenting, if people are popping into the room, will you just let them in?
We'll do. We'll do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening, Sumendra.
Hey,
Good evening,
Sumendra.
Sumedra.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my lighting is terrible. I'm just like a silhouette.
That's
Okay.
No, we
okay.
can see you. We can see you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, Sumendra. How's your day been?
Good. I've been a little nervous all day, but otherwise good. And
You'll
yours?
be absolutely 100%.
Yeah, that
Thank
makes
you.
3 of us. Don't stress.
Yeah.
In
hmm.
nervousness, we will unite.
Yes,
Yes.
it will bond us.
Yes.
Please excuse me for like 2 seconds.
Yes, we can all just mute ourselves until
Cool. Stefan, I just want to double check. You will be sharing the slides, right?
that's correct.
Cool. Thanks. The slide master.
That's me. Hi, Dee.
Hello,
Thank you for joining us.
it's a pleasure.
Good evening, everyone in the room. I think we'll just give it a few more minutes before we get started. And thank you very much for your patience. Right, I think we'll get started. Good evening, everybody. I want to welcome you to the fourth session in our spring sessions range. Tonight, we will be discussing the future of African retail. I want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Stefan Dallapria. I'm the head of academics and the MC for this session. So I just quickly want to make you attent on the notes in the chat. Just a few etiquette guidelines. Please keep your microphone muted throughout the sessions. Each session will last between 5 and 15 minutes, and we will keep Q&A for afterwards. So we will not ask questions during the presentation, but we will keep questions for afterwards. Please do post questions in the chat if you have, and I will read them out afterwards to our guest. You are welcome to turn on your camera if you're asking a question afterwards. This session is being recorded, so we will have this footage available to disseminate on social media and to our students. If you are uncomfortable being part of this recording, you may exit at any time. So the purpose of this session is to collaborate and have positive discussion about the African fashion industry. So all comments are absolutely valued and encouraged, but obviously we do wish that you keep comments respectful and constructive. Okay, without further ado, please allow me to introduce our moderators. So firstly, we have Bianca van Heerden. Bianca van Heerden is a full-time staff member at Stadio School of Fashion. She lectures on fashion media and photography. She completed a master's degree in fine arts at the School of Arts, Faculty Humanities at the University of Witwatersrand in 2018. She is passionate about popular culture, media, and the application of media in the online space, and specifically for our school, the fashion space. Jonathan de Klerk is a full-time staff member at Stadio School of Fashion. He lectures creative design, pattern design, and technical drawing. He is currently completing his master's degree in design focusing on the possible integration of environmental sustainability into the current fashion design curricula. Jonathan has experience in working with designers, seamstresses, creating extraordinary patterns, and has some international teaching experiences as well. I know Jonathan told me at length about his experience in Japan, which I'm very jealous about. Thank you, Jonathan and Bianca, for joining us this evening. Our guest this evening is Sumendra Chetty from Merchants on Long, straight from Cape Town. Allow me to quickly introduce Sumendra to our audience. Sumendra Chetty is on a mission to change how the world shops. As the buyer for Merchants on Long, she has helped propel African talent into the international stage by providing a platform to represent local brands of the highest quality, with many of the selected designers going on to win some of the biggest fashion prizes in the world. She is passionate about uplifting creatives and showcasing the extraordinary design talent we have locally. Sumendra has over 10 years experience in the fashion industry, honing in on the curation of ethically produced products as well as product development. Sumendra is passionate about uplifting creatives and showcasing extraordinary talent from Africa, collaborating with local artisans to create products that reach the international market. She has also thrice been a judge of the South African Fashion Week's New Talent competition, as well as judging the South African Fashion Week's menswear competition in 2021. She mentors emerging designers and artists to prepare their products for the luxury market, improving quality standards and positively impacting job creation in the sustainable manufacturing sector. Her areas of expertise include trend forecasting, buying, and procurement. She is passionate about people and ensuring that the artisans creating products benefit. It is her life's work to encourage and help support ethical practices, cultural preservation, and sustainable manufacturing. Thank you so much for joining us, Sumendra. We look forward to hearing your insights. Without further ado, I'd like to hand over to our moderators to lay the groundwork for this discussion.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bianca, just again. So I'm going to be talking about the future of African retail, and I'll be setting the scene on this. So what I want to talk about is the African retail space before the pandemic, then during the pandemic. Then I want to talk about the State of the Nation address, and then post-pandemic retail, and not what we can expect, but what we are thinking about, like where we think it might go. So according to Ogana Ora-Owa from Vogue Business, pre-pandemic fashion designers without direct online businesses depended on on retail stores mostly to reach their customers. So during the pandemic, South African designer and Stadio graduate Rich Menezes, in an interview with Vogue Business, said that retailers need to stop expecting businesses to return to normal. There's no going back to how it was anytime soon. So basically, Rich said that things will change for the better, maybe for the worse, maybe for the better. We don't know. During that time, we weren't very sure of how things would go. So during the State of the Nation in 2023, President Cyril Ramaphosa emphasized the need for the government to focus on local manufacturing and procurement to grow the economy, create jobs, broaden markets, and create numerous opportunities for business expansion, and cut down on imports by 2035. There's also a 5-year plan that Ramaphosa was looking at regarding this. So regarding cutting down on imports already in the next 5 years. Okay, Stefan, we can go on to the next slide. Okay. So Kirsty Bassett from Retail Africa said, our lives as consumers will now revolve around technology. So we all know that we love our cell phones, we love our computers, and the South African retail sector is no exception. So retailers are using cutting-edge technologies to improve the consumer shopping experience and remain ahead of the competition as client expectations continue to change. So as a summary of what we are looking at is technology brings change, and as the world's needs change, how will our continent follow suit? So how are we creating and innovating in a physical retail space amongst technological advances? Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan. Thank you for joining us tonight. And I'm going to be introducing the topic a little bit in a much more of a broadened sense. So I'm going to be speaking about the brick and mortar stores. I'm going to be speaking about online retail and something else in the pipeworks for the future of African retail. So with the brick and mortar store, right? The brick and mortar store is a physical space where we, as physical human beings, go and purchase our physical products. And brick and mortar stores, like Bianca was saying, pre-pandemic, brick and mortar stores were very much favored. However, brick and mortar stores remain popular, and this is according to literature. And in the literature, in the articles that we found, is that South Africa is building several new big malls. So we're now at this crossroads where it's post-pandemic. And the brick and mortar store and online retail spaces are fighting or at a crossroads with each other because we're no longer within that pandemic state, but we need to kind of use technology, like Bianca was saying. Technology is really there. We favor technology the most. But I think what some of the retailers understand from using technology in their retail spaces is that they need to go online. And Stefan, if we can go to the next slide, we'll see why online is not maybe that great. So according to Mohair South Africa this year, South African fashion designers contributed at least 1 billion rands worth towards the country's GDP in 2019. And this was prior, remember, this is prior to COVID-19. So the COVID-19 pandemic, or the pandemic, brought a rise to a variety of new innovative e-commerce stores, providing accessibility and ease to South Africans. And we also see from the literature and the articles that being a fashion designer and the fashion space in South Africa, as well as apparel and clothing, we do contribute and play a huge role in our economy. But according to an article written by Gonetsky, the online retail spaces are currently facing pressure as online retail may have only played a vital role during the pandemic. Currently, Superbalist, and we all know Superbalist as the biggest online retailer in South Africa, they are looking at where they may experience some job cuts due to the pressure from brick and mortar stores. So now we're seeing that pre-pandemic, we had our brick and mortar stores. During the pandemic, we had our online retail. I mean, we went from grocery shopping to clothing shopping to any sort of shopping online because we had to distance ourselves. But now we're seeing that there's a change back to brick and mortar stores. But I think that as South Africans and within a growing economy, we need to revise and relook at how we interpret our brick and mortar stores. And through research, we found that there's something new on the horizon, and this is called a concept store. And I say there that the concept store is on its neck to transcend both online and brick and mortar stores. So this new rise is called, obviously, the concept store. And the concept store is basically a multi-brand retail store that curates an assortment of products and aligns with a specific theme. So we're looking at not only having your products on display, but creating an entire new shopping experience for the consumers. But I think it's now time for us to go and head off to Sumendra, who will explain more about the future of African retail. And that's over to you, Sumendra.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you for having me here today to speak to everyone about the future of African fashion in retail. I am Sumendra Chetty, and I had a very long intro, so I'm sure I don't need to tell you all of that again. But I'm really excited to be here. So I'm going to take it off from here. May change the slide. Okay. So I'm sure everyone has noticed that the African fashion industry is actually on the rise, with more of our designers being nominated for international prizes. And, you know, one of the biggest challenges is innovation. And we're so proud of our designers for going forward and winning prizes such as Musa Maxwell recently. But let me take it from here. The African fashion industry is on the rise, with more designers, brands, and creatives making their mark on the global fashion scene. As we look ahead to 2024 and beyond, there are several key trends and predictions that are shaping the future of African fashion. Thank you. I'm going to start where we are, our home, which is Africa. We have South African Fashion Week, Lagos Fashion Week, and Nairobi Fashion Week making big splashes. I would say that Johannesburg, Lagos, Cape Town, Dakar, and Nairobi are known as creative hubs for fashion and design. They are a home for the visual arts and for sustainable financial and commercial growth. Forbes magazine has recently published a study stating that most influential cities in the world include Johannesburg, Cape Town, and Lagos. However, what is more important is how Africa is perceived and how its products are received in the global fashion context. Africa is diverse and dynamic in terms of culture, historical references, and commercial viability, but the African fashion and apparel sector within Africa is still often met with a degree of uncertainty and fascination. Taking African fashion to the global scene requires a strategic and holistic approach and identified vital channels for fashion designers on the continent to be seen and, more importantly, bought internationally. Okay, so I'd like to talk a little bit about global recognition. The image to your left is from the beautiful campaign for the V&A Museum's African Fashion Exhibition. And this was done by Sunny Delight. And then the image below is the current African Fashion Exhibition in New York. African fashion has definitely made its mark across the globe, becoming a category brand of its own and informing an immense relevant and meaningful global conversation about the role of the continent in fashion's future. At the African Fashion Exhibition, an immense undertaking of a show that recently opened at the Brooklyn Museum in New York City, the future and the legacy of African fashion is being presented at a large scale. Originally organized by the V&A Museum in London, of which Merchants Online was an official sponsor. To take us back to what makes us so special, our sustainability and ethically sourced material. Something that is expected to continue in the coming years is the increased use of sustainable and ethically sourced materials. Consumers are starting to pay more attention to the environmental impact of their fashion choices. I'm sure this is a repercussion of 2020. In response, African fashion designers are taking notice and incorporating sustainable materials into their collections, such as locally produced wool and recycled fabrics. By using sustainable materials, designers are able to support small-scale farmers and artisans who are working to produce these materials in an environmentally friendly way. African designers are not only making a positive impact on the environment, but they are also helping to preserve traditional techniques and crafts. Many sustainable materials are produced using methods that have been passed down for generations, such as hand weaving and natural dyeing. By incorporating these techniques into their collections, designers are helping to preserve these ancient arts and promote them to a global audience. For instance, Tebe Magugu has taken his logo and made it very, very wearable in the sense that consumers of all ages and of most audibility as well. Then we've got Tongoro, who have taken their symbols of their Senegalese heritage and placed it in a geometric sense to create a new and fun way of looking at fashion. can change the slide. And Imani Ayisi, the first African designer to be asked by Paris Fashion Week to show at their haute couture shows. Next, I'd like to talk about creative collaboration. I think this is probably one of the most important spheres that African fashion retail is going into. Over here, we have the amazing Tandiwe, who is an incredible fashion photographer. So this is about campaigns. Social media has also played a major role in shaping the future of African fashion. Platforms such as Instagram and TikTok have given designers and brands the opportunity to reach a global audience and connect with customers in a way that was not possible before. As a result, more and more African designers are using social media to showcase their work and build their brand. Multifaceted campaigns featuring industry creatives such as Trevor Stearman, Prince Gayasa, Imran Christian, Daniel Obasi, and Ruth Asai, to name a few. Next up is digital innovation. Companies need to adopt a mindset of digital strategy for their entire business, covering people, processes, technology, and data. This sudden market direction drives fashion leaders to rethink their teams. Digital transformation requires a new team with a different mindset and a new mix of knowledge and skills to go with their existing teams. So over here, I've just got a graph by eBanks showing the digital buyers growth index that is predicted up until 2025. So you can see that Africa is still in its early stages of e-commerce, but the sector should see significant growth throughout 2026. Growing markets such as South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya are leading the digital revolution in Africa, seeing remarkable growing trends and developments in their respective markets. Tech innovation. The growth of Africa's payment system showcases its potential as a fertile ground for innovation. It presents lucrative opportunities for local and international businesses. And then it's just my contact me page, which I'm sure will be made available to everyone. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that will be made available to everyone in this team and also for our students. With that, I hand it back to the moderators to facilitate the discussion.
Thank you, Stefan. Okay, yeah, so Stefan has our questions up there. So we've just got some questions that we want to aim at you, Samendra. So what is African retail and how is it different in relation to retail across the globe? So I know you've given us quite a bit of a definition and you've also gotten into retail in Africa, but what makes us different?
A few things make us different. For start, it's just our development is quite different to, let's say, walking down the high street in London or in New York. And while we are expanding and we are growing our footprint on the world, it's still seen as a niche industry. So you're still getting a little bit more personal care. There's a holistic way of looking at how the consumer is coming in and being treated, the information that you're being given. And I think that goes to show it's not a well-oiled machine as yet, but we are developing. We are getting there. Hope that answers.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, it does. Stefan, will you just share the presentation again? It seems like it's stuck. I don't know if everyone sees what I'm seeing.
There you go. Sumendra, so I've got a question from you,
Yes.
but it's not based on our slides. It's
Okay.
something that you said in your presentation, because I
Sure.
think you hit a soft spot with me when you spoke about sustainability.
Yes.
And I want to know, what role does sustainability play in the future of African fashion? Can you give us more of an in-depth, concise look at this?
Yeah.
Maybe not for everyone, but certainly for me. I'm very interested.
Definitely. So I think sustainability has always been important, but then it was important to maybe 10 people in the room before we were hit with COVID. And, the world started to examine how many flights we take, what is our carbon footprint, what damage are we doing, what are we really facilitating in the world if it's to our detriment to get a t-shirt that's cheaper than our coffee. So African fashion has always molded heritage. And with heritage comes this stripped back, really pared back essence and appreciation for what we have naturally. And also doing it in a way that's cruelty free and sustainable to the environment. So you're not over farming, you're not on a scale that's producing 20,000 units of a garment at one go. It's slower fashion, it's kind of fashion, and it really speaks to our craftsmanship, to our artisans who are, totally encumbered in fashion, because you'll see more and more of our top named designers like Sindiso Khumalo and Tebe and Lucanio Mdengi, for instance, using really, really well-made product that's natural to the environment.
That is fantastic. Thank you for that. And I do think that there should be a huge importance within the sustainability, and not just speaking about the environment or environmental sustainability, but social sustainability as well as economic sustainability. That we really need to focus on educating not only our students but the entirety of South Africa upon this. Because when we shop local, and this is now social sustainability, when we shop local, we grow our GDP, we grow our economy. So I think that everyone should just take a big hint from this one. Thank you so much, Samendra.
Thank you.
Back to you, Bianca.
Hi, Samendra. So I have two questions actually.
Yes.
So the one is I want you to tell us a little bit more about Merchants on Long, because I really want to know more about your store. And then
Thank you.
secondly, you can add to that is what is the criteria for designers to sell in your online store? Or
Sure.
in your store in general. I know you have an online store, but I know it's also retail. Sorry.
Yes. No, that's perfect. A little bit more about Merchants. Merchants was the brainchild of Hanley Rupert, and of course she comes from a background of retail and fashion, so she knows what she's getting herself into. But I would say Africa is a total different ball game. For us, it's about providing a platform for designers as well, and that's the fun part of it. Really, the heart of it is etching out different designers and different artisans who maybe need some help with their business skills or their acumen, just getting out there. And that's what we provide. We're really care about everyone that's in our store. And the criteria for designers, basically, for me, it's quite a full circle approach. They've got to have designs that will be commercially viable, of course, but they've also got to have a story. And this is what I always tell designers who come to me and say that they want to enter an international prize, but how should they do it? And the most important thing is using your voice to enact change, to enact what you want to get across, and to really showcase that in a full circle way, where it's not just about the end product, but it's about everybody's hands that touch that garment to get it made.
That's amazing. Thank you. Okay, over to you, Jonathan.
Jonathan, before you continue, Sumendra, I just have a question for you. In terms of, you've explained that the vision that a designer should have and the story and the narrative. Do you see, for our students in particular, what is the message in terms of the practical criteria that they need to be able to actually feature on a rail in a store? Is there some sort of quality criteria? Is there some sort of quality assurance that you look for? What is the sort of quality process that you go through with designers before they're allowed to be on your rails?
Okay, perfect. So, I mean, I think it all starts from them showcasing their different collections, and we will chat about it. Some garments are maybe not as well made, and we could tweak it here and there to get it just right. But also having a reliable production one, which I know is very, it's a loaded conversation. Um, but having a
Absolutely.
yeah, having a reliable production one is very important. But something I've been told quite a few times from designers is that they appreciate that we don't put a lot of pressure on them to overproduce or to produce too fast. I think because we keep in mind slow fashion, but we want to get it right, of course. So everything is quality checked before it's received into the store.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sumitra. And my next question is also not from the slides, but from just what I was listening to you saying. And you spoke a little bit about innovation. And I want to know, from your experience and your expertise, how can African retailers be innovative? Because when we talk about innovation and talk about technology, people automatically assume let's create an online store. But how can, and because from what I said, brick and mortar stores are still our bread and butter here in South Africa. So how can retailers be more innovative in your experience?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked me that question. I had the most interesting conversation today with Ria, who is the founder of Lila Bear. It's a Kenyan brand, really extraordinary. She was just telling me how she has created a system that can block print in Africa, where we know traditionally block printing is a technique that's been mastered in India. She has now created, a mold and gotten the software and really learned how to like put this all together to 3D print in a way that it comes out like block printing, and it's really beautiful and very technically, it's challenging, but she has managed to make it work. And I think so many of our designers do the exact same thing. And that goes right back down to heritage of, natural dyes. People are only discovering this across the world. For us, it's normal. It's something that we know as home, but for the world, it's something completely bonkers when you think about how much pollution is caused by the global north.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, that's. I mean, people don't understand. People don't know, and I think that's also the same for a lot of South Africans as well. We don't know that you can naturally dye something. You can use something like your onion peels to dye something. So I think a big we need to educate the fellow South Africans about what we can achieve through fashion and how we can be sustainable through that. And Stefan, I think the next question is Sumitra has actually answered in her in her presentation. So Bianca, if you don't mind, I'm just going to ask this one here quickly. So Sumitra, based on your experience and your expertise, what is your prediction for retail in the next 5 years?
Is that retail all over or African retail?
African retail.
Okay.
African retail.
So my prediction is that we will see a slow growth in online. I don't predict, and I think that the graphs as well show us that it's not going to take over brick and mortar, but I do think omni-channel selling is going to be something that's important, where you have more than just your sales associates, you have experiences. And this is something huge that I read on Shopify's website, that they've actually discovered that consumers are more likely to purchase, to actually convert the experience to a purchase, if there is special attention or there's some kind of innovative, like an innovative hub in the middle of the store where people can actually touch and feel as it's being made, or also just going out and doing different conferences.
Beautiful, thank you. I also do have a prediction, and I think we're done with our questions, but if I can also state my prediction here, and then afterwards we can, oh, my apologies, Bianca, there's a social
There's two
media
more.
question for you. I'm so sorry, I'm jumping the gun here. Let me just,
Okay. Would you like me to ask the next question, Jonathan?
I give you my full blessing. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I am more in the media space, and I teach like how to use social media in my higher certificate module. And I'm a photographer and I teach photography. So like I'm very interested in the visual aspect, and I also use social media as a human.
Mhm.
So I was thinking, like, how do you think, how important do you think is social media for promoting your business? Do you use social media yourself in your business, and what platforms do you use specifically, if you do?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I fully agree with you. Social media is such an interesting tool. I think it's probably, I mean, it's getting to be one of the biggest tools for marketing that a brand can use, because even if you're starting off and you have 3 incredible posts, someone will see it. I'll definitely see it. I live on Instagram, so that's my favorite. And I love to scroll, and I think a lot of buyers are also doing that, where we're so emerged in social media as well to grab our attention. Of course, it's just an attention grabber, and then you learn more and you study more about the brand and the person behind the brand. But I can't emphasize it enough that not having a social media handle is it's terrible for your actual growth, because people want to know a little bit more. They also want to know, the highs and lows as well. They don't just want to see the highlights. It makes you more of a person to them instead of just a brand.
Yeah, so also what I wanted to ask, but I think you answered it is, so does it kind of create a relationship with your target market, like your social media account? People can relate with you if if they see what you're posting, the way that you're posting, even the aesthetic that you follow. So yeah, I think you answered my question. Next is you, Jonathan.
I think also from my previous question, I think Samindra, you did answer this. So that is what you've envisioned of African retail, and you mentioned that it was going to be a very slow growth, and I think I also have a slight prediction here, and we can go to afterwards. We can go to our chat for more Q&A. But my prediction is that Africa will always have retail. In summary, in conclusion, there will be retail in Africa in 5
Yes.
years' time.
Yes.
Just a
Oh,
little
no,
bit of a joke, but yeah.
just to add to that, sorry, no, I meant a slow growth with the online aspect of retail,
Yeah,
not
okay,
with
okay.
the brick and
The brick
mortar.
and
I think
mortar.
that's growing. We can see already there's so many more concept stores that are really cool that are popping up all over
Okay.
Africa.
So then would you say that Merchants is a concept store?
That's how we describe ourselves. I don't know
Great
if
stuff.
you're the academics, you can tell me if it's correct, but we offer more than just the actual product. And it's not just fashion. Of course, it's homeware, it's kids, it's art. So it's a nice little, I like to call it a passport to Africa if you're coming to visit us. Because we're also excited about showcasing the different talents and taking you through, like, oh, this person's from Ghana, or they're from the Ivory Coast, and you can see the different techniques and you can get a feel for the countries. from where the products come from.
That is beautiful. Could we expect a merchants on Long in Johannesburg? Because apparently it's in Cape Town, and I can't fly all the way to Cape Town just to experience your store.
Well,
Can
you
we
need to
expect?
follow us because we've been in, we've actually like popped up in Joburg twice this year now. We were there for a month in Rosebank, and then recently a prelude to F&B Art Fair. We were there at the BMW Young Collectors Art Generation.
That's brilliant. Oh, thank you so much, Sumedra. Thank you for answering all of our wacky questions. And I think, Stefan, we can head to the
Yes.
chat now as well. Thanks, Sumedra.
Thank you so much, Sumendra. We definitely want you to come do a pop-up at our campus.
Oh, amazing.
We're planning big things for 2024, and you will be more than welcome to come display with us and sell your goods and give us that taste of the African experience.
Thank you.
So Wanele asks, in relation to the online retail growth margins, do you believe Africa can attain the numbers of international markets, especially given Africa's third world developing world status? Or is entering international markets as South African designers more promising for profit margins?
Okay, I think that's a two-parter, maybe a
Yes.
three-parter question. Hi, Wanele. Thank you for your question. I think that we have everything in us to be as competitive. We are just hindered only by, not having complete channels to distribute. And I think that that is the only, well, one of the biggest issues is that, flying something to Germany, for instance, can cost almost as much as the garment. So I think legislation would be important for us as well in terms of how high the tariffs are when input duties, and that can be also a big hurdle to face. But the more we advocate for something and the more we want growth, the more you will achieve it, I believe. And then the second part was, sorry, do you mind just reading that again?
Yes, and then so the first part is, do you believe Africa can attain the numbers? You said that it is possible, but it depends on more the logistical and the technical aspects of the value chain. I believe you answered that. And then entering international markets as the African designers. So maybe they should just basically aim straight for an international market and bypass the local market. Your thoughts on this?
No. I think you should grow your home base first, and from there not have that overhead pressure. Because remember, if you're going to international markets, it's not so easy to get picked up. You have to go to a trade show 3 times for the buyers to see that you are able to produce consistently 3 times in a row. Milan Fashion, all of our designers will tell you the same. It takes a lot of capital. Of course, there's investment opportunities, and the country is really behind that. There's many funds that one can apply to go to international trade shows, and I would highly recommend doing so, of course. But I think developing your product in the home country from which it's made, or continent, if you're going to do cross-country production, is important. And then you should get those agreements in place. Sorry, this is a bit of admin now. You get those agreements in place.
We want to know.
Yeah, and then once you're approached by Net-a-Porter and the rest, you can actually produce to the quality that you need to be able to produce, and you've made a name for yourself. Because one thing I can say about South Africans and about Africans in general is that we root for our people. So we will push you there, and we will get you international claim and acclaim. And I think that that is something that will come, and it doesn't need to take a long time. It's just about building the relationships.
Excellent. Thank you. Wanele, I hope that answered your question. Then we excellent. Then we have a question from Tando Mbonani, who asks, what are the major trends and challenges in African retail? So I think you've indicated some of the trends and you've already indicated some of the challenges, but maybe from your personal experience, um, because you are in a sense a boutique, you're a retailer, but just in your general experience, what are some of the major trends and challenges in African retail?
Yeah, the major trends that I can attest to at the moment is, I did touch on this in the presentation as well, is really bringing it back to home with your production and your material, but also just making sure you've ticked all the boxes to make it ethical as well. So your production team are getting paid the right amount. All of these things add up to you being certified then as responsible and sustainable. And then moving on from there, I think we've got so many cultures and so many different standpoints to draw from, but you don't even need to draw from necessarily your own culture. You can appreciate what you've grown up around. You can appreciate art. There's so many different themes and thematic like talks to have towards this. And it doesn't need to be one way or the next. I think we really have such an appreciation for Afrocentric, but then minimal clothing as well. As long as it's well made and the story is etched into it, that's all the trends that you need. I really think as long as you've got your angle correct, you will make it. As for challenges, there are a few challenges. I don't want to dissuade anybody from entering this field, but the challenges we have mostly are, sourcing fabrics, of course, and then growing the skill set. And if you can uplift and also upskill people, you've already then added to the country, you've added to people's lives, and you've added to your production channel. So I would say do that. Get all the research done for logistics as well, because can be a nightmare at times, if I'm honest.
Absolutely. So we at School of Fashion, we obviously have a business qualification as well, where we teach students these elements of business, and we also try to inculcate the elements of business with our design students. But I think there's often that gap where it's the learning curve for designers, and you can teach it, but it's the real world that is often also the best teacher for these kinds of lessons. So from my side, I have a question. What do you think is the biggest lesson that your designers in your store learn from retail from you, if that makes sense?
Wow. Retail from me. Okay. I think it's to be fearless. I always say there's something to be learned from making mistakes. And that, like you spoke about, is real world knowledge. You have to make mistakes so that you know where to grow, you know what needs attention. Okay, so maybe you need a business manager. That's fine. Maybe you need someone who's going to handle your CMT work where you're not going in because it's too stressful. Honestly, people are different. And my doors are always open to our designers to chat and to phone me, and which can be tricky sometimes with time differences, but I'm always happy to chat to them about what they're going through, and it can be so different. But I think the biggest thing I can say is don't be afraid of failing, because it will help you succeed.
That is a fantastic point, and that's also a point we try to impress on our students, definitely. Thank you so much, Sumendra.
Thank
Okay, we don't have any further questions from the audience. So on that note, I just want to say, firstly, thank you, Sumendra, for being an absolutely fabulous guest.
you.
You've provided so many valuable insights, and to our audience. And we will obviously also share this information with our students. I just want to say on behalf of Stadio School of Fashion, even though you're far away in Cape Town, if you're ever in Johannesburg, there's a cappuccino waiting for you at our campus.
Thank you.
And we really, really appreciate what you're doing for the fashion community. Then I also want to thank Jonathan and Bianca for their roles as moderators this evening. Thank you for managing the conversation and presenting a bit of background. And to all of our guests, I want to thank you. And I also want to remind you to join us next week for our final online spring session, where we will discuss the rise of African fashion. So on that note, I'd like to say to you, thank you all and have a fantastic evening.
Bye-bye. Thank you all. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Samendra.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Mindra. Bye-bye.
Bye, Stefan.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, Stefan.